Good evening, America. Allow me first to tell you that I shall not apologize for this video. I do, like many of you, appreciate the comforts of the everyday routine, the security of the familiar, the tranquility of repetition. I enjoy them just as much as any patriot, but in the spirit of commemoration, whereby those important events of the past, usually associated with someone's death or the end of some awful bloody struggle, are celebrated with a nice holiday, I thought we could mark this, January the 1st, by taking some time out of our daily lives to sit down and have a little chat. I do hope you have enjoyed your holidays and taken heed of my forewarning to spend them doing such things that shall not be taken for granted, spending time with the family, restructuring broken bonds, and being appreciative for the togetherness. While many people have felt the effects of the struggling economy, especially when it comes to the gifts beneath the tree, let us not forget the true nature of the holidays, and let us not succumb to the petty emotions of greed and envy. One more celebration awaits all of you, the commemoration of the year 2010, the farewell to 2009, which many of us would much rather forget. But forget we cannot. 2009 was a year that should not be forgotten for what it was. For many of us, it was a struggle. For others, it may have been business as usual. But for nearly all of you, in the very least, it should have opened your eyes to the world around you, making you appreciate the little things in life that might be more important than reality television or fast food. Perhaps some of you found the time to profess your love without buying an expensive gift. Maybe some of you found time for a family dinner, taking exception to the general routine of eating out. Maybe many of you have felt the quality in the quantity of more time as you sat at home in unemployment. I know I felt all of those scenarios. However, things are getting better, say those in power. So say the ones who have not changed their lifestyle in the slightest, who have not had to struggle with monthly bills or seek new professions, only to be stopped at the door. Things are getting better, no doubt. For those who have been following my lessons on here, and for those that have chosen to open their eyes to reality, you will realize that things are not getting better, but are indeed getting worse. Was it the loss of your own job after countless years of service that opened your eyes? Was it the promise of recovery by big government only to watch the unemployment numbers continue to rise? Or was it only these past few weeks when you realized the holiday bonus you were so used to wasn't coming? Did that make you open your eyes? Regardless of how or why you did it, the fact remains that if you are even watching this video, especially up until this point, even if you are the most skeptical of people, you have an inkling, a feeling deep within the words I speak as truth. The 2009 has marked the beginning of change, and 2010 will mark the end of the world as we know it. If you are interested in this subject matter and you haven't read my first 4 lessons, then please do so by visiting my notes on Facebook or my blog on MySpace. It will affect all of us, and it would be best if you were prepared. I'm not going to explain my notes in detail through this video, so if you want to know exactly what I'm referring to, then please do not confuse yourself, become enlightened, and read my lessons. With that said, this will be my final blog on MySpace or Facebook. Be it personal, political, social, it doesn't matter. This will be the end. Throughout the next year, I will be phasing out of social networking completely, so please, for those who wish to contact me in any way, I would prefer email or contacting me on my cell phone, as you will receive a response much quicker and that way, perhaps immediately. So now, on to the point of this conversation. I'm afraid that for the full effect of this to sink in, I'm going to have to give a little history of myself. Please bear with me as it all comes to a point in the end. Those close to me know that I started out my life a pretty devout Christian. I grew up in a church environment and was ushered into religion with my family. This remained constant in my life until I was just about in my teens. There was an accident in my family that led me to question the afterlife, and thus question my religion. I did my own research, and within 2 years I had become more affluent with the major religions of the world than anybody I knew. Christianity, Judaism, Hinduism, Islam, Buddhism, Taoism, Catholicism, and many offshoots of those were my expertise. In the end of my crusade, however, I realized that I would have faith in no single religion with so many different religions around, each one raising the next generation to worship blindly and not question themselves. The only option I had led me to the likes of atheism, and thus I denounced all religions. As I grew, I became bolder with my beliefs, refusing to go to church any longer and creating speeches and essays for school classes. I shot down religion after religion, and to a crowd beginning no older than 16. I got a lot of flack for it in high school and my early college time. However, I knew my right to do such, and I knew the controversy surrounding such topics. I became a go-to guy to disprove some kind of logic used in the Bible or other religions, though Christianity was my specialty. However, being raised to believe is hard to ignore. Throughout my years, I would occasionally pray, as I once did, and basically tell whatever God there was that if they wanted to stop me from my path, all they would have to do is something to prove themselves to me. This went on for years, and time after time I would receive the same response: nothing. Thus, my creed against religion was only fueled more. By the age of 18, I began to dabble in New Age religions, topics such as astronomy, reincarnation, and spirit energy. I found some of these topics a little more easy to embrace due to the implementation and logical proof applied. I became acceptable to the fact of what I continue to believe today, the fact that the universe could not be the creation of nothing, as atheism implies. Rather so, I came to call the life force of everything, you, me, the trees, the buildings, everything, as a product of, for lack of a better word, God. We are the collective being of whatever it was that started the long chain of events that led to our existence. At the same time, I also was drawn to subjects such as the corruption and greed in the world, starting with the United States government. The more I read into it, the more disgusted I became, the more truth I found, the more I lusted for it. I soon came to realize that I was one of the few who knew these things. I was one of the very few people who actually took the time to step outside of their convenient little box to see it. And boy, did I see it. My life literally changed overnight. What was once a mild interest became an obsession, and my outlook on people in general became that of hatred and ignorance. It was at that time, just 18 years old, that I told myself that I would not sit by and allow the world to fall victim to this anymore. I would be one of the people that stopped at nothing to fight the corruption, and since then I have been fighting as much as I can by spreading the word of truth. But many would ask, why now? Why choose this time to go public? My answer is that the reason I choose to go public now is because my figures were off. I, like many others, felt that there would still be more time to spread the word of truth, to wake people up, so to speak. However, as the actions of the Bush administration wound down and the truth surfaced about certain events that took place during his presidency, we realized that we were in a downward spiral. The savior that would set us free was Barack Obama. He spoke of change and putting an end to the corruption, taking this country back to its roots as the powerful nation it was meant to be. Many were swept by his promises, including me. I didn't vote, but if I would have, it would have been for him. He fooled everyone, including me, into hoping for a pipe dream that would never be ours. It was after he was elected that he continued the same slippery slope that the Bush administration began, that those people who seek truth solely realized that we were tricked, and like so many of our ancestors, we let our guard down to corruption. The promises were broken, the change was non-existent, and the race towards wrenching the rights away from the American people grows ever faster. It isn't a matter of political affiliation, Democrat, Republican, or your petty views on the issues. It is a fact that we were lied and continue to be lied to for the past 150 years. Whether the president would have been John McCain or Hillary Clinton in place of Obama, the same agenda would have been carried out. The American presidency is a puppet place for more sinister minds, and earlier this year I was given a glimpse at what had to be done. In July of this year it was a hard time for me, no doubt, just as it was a hard time for everybody. The only solace I had while being unemployed were the calls that sparingly came to me from my best friend stationed in Iraq since February. We spoke often about the corruption. I would give him news, he would give me news from the service, little things he heard through the grapevine. However, in mid-July an event occurred that changed my outlook forever. It was a late night of working at my office, and I was feeling particularly depressed. Though it was about 1 in the morning, I decided to grab a coffee and go take a seat at the canal in the town I live, to mull some things over in my head for a while. I did this, but at the end I did what I had done so many times in the past. I prayed. Not to a Christian God, not to Allah, not to Buddha, but to the God I believed is here around us in everything. Not some fuzzy man in the sky who controls our destinies, but the essence of everything that exists as one collective force. I prayed to the universe, to anything that would listen. I asked what I should do and how I should do it. I asked what the future would hold and how I would face it. I questioned everything that happened and if it truly happened for a reason. And then I went home expecting the same results as usual, the return of nothingness. Meanwhile, 15,000 miles across the globe in Iraq, my friend did the same, both of us troubled by the situation in the world. I went to sleep that night and I dreamed a dream like no other. There were flashes so vivid yet so foggy, and a sense of enlightenment that came over me. With the enlightenment came the sense of dread and understanding as I viewed the bodies of thousands of innocent people in the streets. The world was aflame, but as quickly as it had lit, it was gone, and what was left was beauty, and the old adage rung true in my head: the night is always darkest before dawn. I awoke with the visual of what I saw, but more so I awoke with an understanding, a feeling that was so unexplainable, but I had felt like it had been with me my entire life. Everything all of a sudden clicked into place, and my path became clear. Being the skeptic that I was, I questioned myself. Was this simply a dream? But if so, why had I experienced nothing like it in the past? I dwelled on it for the rest of the day, naturally questioning the logic behind it and how the brain works. At 5 that day I received a phone call from my friend in Iraq, and he was shaken up. My mouth dropped in awe as he described to me the exact same sensation that had occurred to me, and the similarities in our visions, which were uncanny. We both knew that without a shadow of a doubt, defying all logic, that we were treated to an experience that few men and women ever have a chance to partake in. Whether you call it a vision, a premonition, or a calling of fate, a path has been set since then, and we have been calling everything that has happened thus far, from the economy to the corruption of the healthcare bill, everything stands on the brink of collapse. Whether you have faith or not, whether you are ignorant or not, you cannot deny simple logic. The logic stands before you, and history has proven that even the unacceptable can still occur. Nations can and will fade, no matter how powerful they may seem. Species can be made extinct, no matter how dominant they become. And one man can make a difference, no matter how small his voice may be. These are all realities of history, and you need only to open the history books to see examples spewed about the graphs of time. Does ignorance blind people to the fact that we are not immune to fate? Does perception of reality of individuals make them incapable of seeing obvious truths in front of them? Will you be one to listen to this truth? Revolution is here. Revolution is all around us. In the next 2 years, this world will change drastically. It will become worse than you have already experienced. You will face hardships of biblical proportions. Some will endure, while some will not be able to take the pressures of such change. When you look at the history of cultures throughout time, you realize that many of these civilizations were quite advanced. The ancient Sumerians had astrology that rivaled even our technology today. The Egyptians were able to create giant structures that man today would deem impossible. The Mayans were masters of time, spirituality, and astrology, some things which are only discovering the relevance of today. A similarity between all of the cultures and the religions that stemmed from them is that they all called for an end to an era, a period that would mark the end of the world as we know it. Even all the main religions of the world call for it, although they may refer to it by different names. Some people have seen this as the coming of the end of the world in its entirety. However, this is all fear-mongering, scare tactics by those who are unsure. What we are witnessing is the change to hardship that will ultimately lead to a change for the better, whether we are granted with enlightenment or we face the supposed doomsday that some call for. We will all be better off in the end. In conclusion, I leave in hopes that when the time comes to take action, you all know what to do. Think back on my words and the beliefs you hold dear and try to think of the greater good rather than to embrace selfishness that we are all guilty of. Do not try to fight that change, but embrace it and do your part. Embrace your families and friends and learn to let go of the novelties you have become used to. Realize that as long as you can weather the coming storm and survive until the very end, the world will be a better place for those of us that are left and all of our future generations. Many of you I may never see again. Some of you I may see almost every day. However, that does not change one thing. Obviously, each and every person has played an impact in my life and my destiny, and for that I thank you. To my friends and family, I say that I love you, and should anything come between us, do not fear for my safety or well-being, but know that I am doing what needs to be done. The future is cloudy, and it is hard to see when things will play out. Rest assured, you will all feel it within you, and you will all know what has to be done. I wish the best of luck and safety to everyone who is watching this, and I will pray for the future of each and every one I know, and even those I do not. Let light guide you on all your journeys, and may we all meet again on the other side. God bless.